So today I would like to continue my demonstration on making stencils, or my tests on making stencils. And I recently discovered on Michael's that they were advertising new is this stencil material. It's Flexible Stencil Film. Whereas my previous video, if you watched it, I was doing the demo using the regular Cricut stencil material. And you can go back and watch my trials and tests on that. I had used the stencils. I'm trying to use them on a round surface, and this one I did using the older material, and it worked okay, but I couldn't really do a fine pattern like this. I had to hand paint a lot of these fine lines in after because they were just too detailed, and the paint would bleed underneath the lines. Not too bad, but so anyways, I'm going to try this now. I've already printed some out, and right away I can see the difference is the old stuff. This is the old stuff that you can see the lines through it, and the new stuff, it's slightly thicker, and I found that when I was weeding this, it was so much easier. In fact, I will print off some more and show you a demo, but all I had to do was peel this off, and all the little bits that were in here were left on the back, so it wasn't that hard for me. But when I was weeding on the old material, as you can see, I ended up losing bits because it was very hard to do, because it's a little bit thinner. I like the Smart materials overall because they are thicker. Even the vinyl is better. So I'm excited to do some painting tests on this now and see if I get a better result. But I definitely like how well this looks already. And what I think I'll do is I'll do some side-by-side tests with the new material and the old material, and we can see if it produces a better result or not. Okay, so on the left, I've got just the regular stencil film, and on the right, I have got the flexible stencil film. And now I'm just going to paint some black in here, and all I'm concerned about is the center of this stencil here. So I know that this is sticking up, but that's just because of the piece of rawhide that I'm using, which I've tried to do tests on the paper before, but obviously I'm going to be using it on rawhide rattles, so I want to see how well this is going to work. And so one thing I try to do when I'm doing this is paint like inwards away from the line so that I don't accidentally get any paint going under the line. Like, I'm not going to go back and forth like that because it may do that. Of course, once I get over here to the flower area, that's going to be more difficult. So I'm just going to try and paint directly over top the flowers. See how that goes. I don't know if I might. Okay, so I'm hoping these are very fine and delicate. I'm very curious to see that they won't bleed underneath. Make sure that these are pressed down very good. I'll let this dry a little bit, and then we will see how it looks. This is part of why I'm doing this test right now, to see if this particular stencil is going to be workable. Again, on the right I have the flexible stencil film, and on the left is the old, it's not, I don't know if it's necessarily old, but non-flexible. Okay, time for the reveal here. The one on the left is the one that I did in my previous video. And yeah, there was quite a bit of bleeding there in that one. This is the newer flexible stencil film. Let's see if there's any difference whatsoever. Okay, I think, unless it was just a fluke, but the new flexible stencil film did work better. So let's go on to the other one that I demoed. Where is it? This one, the one with the flowers, which is more detailed. So I'm really curious how this one will work. So, oh wow, that one didn't work at all. So this was the regular Cricut Stencil Film, and that just was a total disaster. Bled everywhere. Now fingers crossed that this one works better. Wow, isn't that amazing? Look at the difference. And I honestly, I mean, like I said, it is thicker. So it must be that. It must be thicker and a little bit stickier so that it sticks on here. Because that's two of them that were, the one on the right is the flexible stencil film. So it definitely works a lot better. Impressive. Okay. And I didn't have the new one yet for this one, but actually I think I'll print it off. I'll print off a new one of this pattern, and I want to do another comparison because I want to have 3 times the charm, that it's better. Now I did do this one using the new flexible stencil film. I'd hate to see what it looked like if I'd used the old one, because it did bleed quite a bit in places, like the edging wasn't super clear, but it still looks okay. But at least with the feathers, you know, feathers don't have to be perfect. So I think that it still looks okay. But I don't think this would be one that I would mass produce for the students. But I still can't believe how well this one worked out in comparison. So that is really nice. And now I want to try it. I'm going to try this with painting the flowers a different color on my next attempt. That's awesome. Okay, I hope my results helped you. Even though it says Smart Stencil and it's made for the Cricut Maker 3, I only have the Cricut Maker, and so I just used it on a mat and cut it with the mat. So you can still use it even though it says Cricut Maker 3 if you have only the Cricut Maker 1. I do want to point out that they do sell the flexible stencil film in a smaller roll, and it's not the Smart Flexible Stencil. If you prefer to buy a smaller roll, this was way more cost effective, and like I said, it is a little bit thicker because of not needing a mat, and so I think it might work better than the flexible stencil film that's not smart material, but I will have to test that out. But I'm sure it's better than the original stuff though. Okay, so I said I would demonstrate how much easier it is to weed the flexible stencil film when you have fine parts. When I was using the regular stuff, it was really thin and getting stuck when I was weeding it. This one, I'll show you when I get to the flower part. This is actually, I'm taking off the whole thing. It's unnecessary little cuts that this pattern had. Not sure why it had two. Okay, so now when I get to this, there's a whole bunch of fine little parts, as you will see on this one. And all I have to do on this one is pull this off. And it's leaving all those fine little bits behind for me. So I don't have to do anything. So I am so excited about that because I weeded a bunch of the other ones before I bought this, and it took me forever because I had to like pick out each little piece separately. So yeah, so I just wanted to show you, and now all I have to do is just scrape these off with my scraper tool, which has disappeared at the moment. Okay, to be thorough, I've decided to print off a third one of these designs. This one, which I've already painted, was the original Cricut Stencil vinyl. This is the Smart Vinyl Flexible, and this one is just the regular flexible vinyl, not meant for a smart machine. And I'm going to paint all three and see the difference on those. Okay, so the top one is the original stencil vinyl or film, not sure which it's called. Okay, so this is doing the same thing that my other ones did, which is, you know, a little bit blurry along the edges. That means it's bleeding. Okay, so this is the Smart Flexible Stencil Film, and again I added color on this one, so now this might not be a good demo. Yeah, there's something wrong with my red and yellow paint. Darn it. So putting the red and yellow in there was not a smart thing for me to do. But if you can compare, forget about the yellow and the red that I screwed up on, but the black itself, it's not bleeding along the edges. So that is very nice. And also when I applied the red and the yellow, I was trying to do something fancy, and I was using these little bottles with the tips on them. Whereas with the black, I was using a paintbrush. So that might also be a reason why the colored section is not working. Okay, so now this is the non-smart flexible. Okay. So besides having the same issue with my yellow and red, the lines are pretty clear still. Whereas this is the non-flexible stencil vinyl, and these are the new flexible ones. This one's for the smart material. So yeah, I don't see too much of a difference between these two, with the exception, of course, of the crappy yellow and red. But okay, so I think I've figured out that I don't want to buy anything but the flexible stencil. Well, I hope this all helped you with making your decision. This is the one that I would buy. You can get a much bigger roll. You get 12 feet of it, and I think this cost me about 20 bucks. I can't remember, but I also think I got it on sale. Whereas this one, the smaller roll, was this one, and it's only 4 feet. But I think this one cost me $5, but I think there was a 50% off sale, so it's regularly 10. Okay, just to give the original Cricut Stencil Film another shot, this time I'm using a sponge because I know that it's supposed to work a little bit better than using a paintbrush, which I was before. because then you can dab straight up and down and not get under the lines as much. So these two I already pulled off. Here's my last one. And I would say that using the sponge definitely works better than a paintbrush. But if you want to compare again with the wolf, doing a simple design works not too bad. But with the wolf, sorry, I'm not in the, where am I? Okay, there. With the wolf, this was the new vinyl, or the new stencil, and this was the original, and you can see that even using, and I used a paintbrush on this one even using a sponge, it definitely worked better than the paintbrush, but it still didn't get the fine detail in here like this one did. So my end result is still the new stencil film is much better than the original. And like this one also, I used the sponge and the old stuff, and if you look very closely you can see, like, you know, a little bit of bleeding. So it's not quite as clean as edges as the new stuff. So there you go. There's my next batch of testing done.